Here comes the polar vortex, friends. And the question isn't really, is it going to get cold? The question is, will we still have power when it gets cold? Ever since 2021, when Texas power grid came crashing down, and then last year in 2022, Christmas Eve, we had Duke Energy having rolling blackouts as well. We have the question of our increasingly unreliable power grid across the United States. The question is, will we have issues this year? I have an email from one of you guys. I'm going to be sharing that with you with a few details obscured to keep people anonymous. But we have warning that in this central district, MISO, that is flagged red on the NERC website, which is a National Reliability Council. It's about the power grids across the United States, and they're already flagging MISO, SERC Central as red, as high risk of power outages in the coming days. We're going to walk you through what's going on here, what the risks are, what could happen. And we're not saying that the power grid is going to collapse. What I'm saying here is that if things don't go according to plan, if we have certain kinds of problems, now we're starting to see some of those problems starting to manifest in other areas. If they start migrating, particularly down to Texas and across the central part of the United States, particularly natural gas freeze-offs. But let's jump in here and see what we got going on here. All 50 states under active weather, federal weather alerts. That's concerning, right? Now, MISO, let's look here what we got. This center one, we haven't talked about MISO before. They haven't been a problem before. They're up here. Yeah, that is not wanted. But we have a problem this problem area up here. It just wants to fill that in, doesn't it? And then PJM is a big power producing area over here. That's in the Pennsylvania, Ohio. We got nuclear power plants. We got a lot of coal. Historically, we have a lot of coal-fired power plants, and a lot of that power goes to power the Northeast. That's where that goes, a lot of it. But in recent times, we've had this coming down to Duke Energy down here, SERC East, and PJM does push its power into the Midwest, into MISO. MISO does draw from PJM. PJM is a powerhouse and an exporter of power. Florida is also an exporter of power. And so that's happening there too. Okay, we got a whole bunch of arrows going all over the place. But basically, inside MISO, we have areas like the Chicago area. Illinois is shutting down power plants. We got a lot of these bluish, purplish states shutting down power plants all over the place, and it's causing reliability issues. So let's see what we got here. This is from the email list here. Please keep this anonymous, and we will. I work for a large water utility in the Midwest and we'll blank that out just to help make anonymous. The area we are in is part of the MISO market. Okay, so like I said, it's up at the upper area here, and then it's also down in Louisiana too for some reason. I'm not sure why. Earlier today, we received word that due to extreme cold conditions, we may be required to reduce our power draw to under a rate of 150 50 kilowatts. This is being blamed on cold weather with temperatures down to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It is set to start 113 and go through so basically this week. That being said, I have worked in the field for about 15 years and at this particular plant for more than 10 years. So we're talking about a long period of time. In all that time, through blizzards and polar vortexes, this has never been required before. A single day event for a heat wave or a severe icing was the most we've had. During the event, we will be running on diesel generators. So they're being told basically they're going to get cut off of power. So now we're going to go into this and we're going to see that the power companies are saying, we're fine, there's no problems. But what we're seeing here is that major utilities and major draws on the power are being told they're going to be cut off or they're going to be rationed severely how much power they have. So they'll be receiving fuel delivered every 48 hours, diesel. Without these deliveries, our generators will run dry in 24 to 36 hours. After that, people will start running out of water. Power outages mean water outages. Many other water utilities in my state do not have this luxury, either not having backup generators or undersized fuel storage for this length of an event. So there you have it, friends. That's the word coming out. Let's take a quick glance at miso. As you can see here, it goes up into Canada. We got miso north, Minnesota, North Dakota, little parts of South Dakota, all the way down here, and then we have Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, all that up there, Louisiana, and down into Texas. Interestingly enough, Texas is going to come back up here in just a moment. I want you to pay attention also here to this generation mix here. This is important. Get my pen working here. Gas, is that gonna, okay, good. Gas, 33% is the generation mix. This is January, December. But notice here, just last month, as we went into winter, so this is the year round, 33% gas. December, 42% gas. Notice we're also seeing some of these coal-fired power plants coming offline. Notice how the full year wind was at 16%, and they're relying more heavily upon renewables here this winter. So they're relying more heavily on renewables this time of year than they were over the past bit. Nuclear power cut down significantly. So basically, what we're seeing here is that they're ramping up the renewables, they're ramping up the gas, they're not ramping up the coal, they're not ramping up nuclear because you can't really ramp up nuclear. And it looks like some of that nuclear might be offline. So that's not good for starters. So there's generation mix. We got 45 million people within MISO. And we got a bunch of stats there. You can look through those if you want to. But just so you can feel the warm and fuzzies, MISO continually develops and integrates ESG practices in its business model. Committed to understanding how environmental, social, and governance ESG principles impact business. Don't you just love how that's all worded? It's just wonderful. It's committed to understanding, not implementing necessarily, but it's about understanding. We're virtue signaling here, but they are pivoting like everybody else is more to renewables, and that's causing problems. So ERCOT, which is Texas, basically the rest of Texas, starting weather watch early ahead of Texas Arctic blast. Texas is ground zero because one, Texas is an independent power grid. Go back up here. So basically, cut the country in half. Lost my pen here. Cut the country roughly in half. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's something like that. This is the East Coast Interconnect. East Coast Interconnect. This is the West Coast Interconnect. And then there's Texas, because Texas is, its own thing. They have an independent power grid. And so when they run out of power within that power grid, they can't really pull power from outside Texas, really. Now, MISO is tied in, so that's not complete. But basically, you got three power grids, right? So we got, they issued a weather watch, which is the lowest level. So they've forecasted extreme cold weather, along with higher electrical demand and power and potential for lower reserves. That's code for everyone's going to turn on the heaters, and that's going to be higher electrical demand, but also potential for lower reserves. And that's what's kind of got people concerned. But don't have to worry about it at all, because ERCOT says that grid is absolutely ready for freeze. Forecast shows power demand, and that's the second half of this but the forecast shows power demand near supply on Tuesday. And we're going to take a look at that for ourselves, what these demands, and look at the graphs and see for ourselves what that's looking like. Okay, so next step, if ERCOT issues a voluntary conservation notice, that's when we'll know that they're starting to be concerned. That's when they ask Texans to voluntarily conserve power and government agencies to reduce energy usage. All right, so it is the sixth warmest December on record, and we're going to have this big snap moving from warm weather. Here in Pittsburgh, we're feeling that's for sure. But Texas, it's going to be an especially strong snap. We're already starting to see that impact. And people are kind of concerned. 2021, that kind of came out of nowhere. No one was expecting that. And then suddenly, boom, they had a problem. Here's the energy supply and demand from ERCOT that they're projecting. Okay. Now, where we should be concerned are some of these places right here, right where that kind of intersects. This is what they're projecting. These 2 points, both on Monday, and then we're going to see again on Tuesday. They're already projecting that the demand is going to get really close to taking up all the supply. That little dotted purple line is the supply that they're going to have, and the blue is what they're projecting is going to be the demand. So these points, this is when solar's rolling off. This is when solar's rolling off. We're going to be seeing this. Now, this is if things go according to plan, no problem. But what happens when demand suddenly goes up? Or conversely, what happens when supply suddenly does this? They're going to have to cut some people off, or they're going to have to cut some people off. People use too much power. They're going to have to shut people off. And that's what we're looking at right here. This is what they're saying their projections are now. Their projections should not be getting them by on the skin of their teeth. So that is concerning. They're saying everything's fine, assuming everything goes fine. But let's look at what their fuel mix is right now. So this is their current generation. This is for 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Keep getting my pen. 1 o'clock in the afternoon here on Saturday afternoon, 1:30. I guess that's local time. But they're running a bit on solar because, well, the sun's out, right? But look at that. 30% is coming from wind. That's a bit concerning. And they're running 40% off natural gas. And this is the big one that we're going to be talking about here. Last time that they had a problem, they had wind dropped off bad. Wind dropped off bad. And when they tried to ramp up the natural gas, there wasn't enough supply of natural gas to kind of make up for the shortfall. That's where and they're like, oh no, it wasn't wind's fault. Natural gas wasn't able to pick up the slack. They weren't able to bring those power plants on. And that's true. That's true. They were able to produce more power from natural gas than they normally produce, but they had like less than half the regular production of wind energy than they did, because the wind blades froze. That was partially due to precipitation that was hitting that. But the natural gas froze because the gas in the lines froze, and the coolant lines were not insulated. So the coolant lines froze, and that even apparently impacted a nuclear power plant as well. And that can impact the coal fire power plants, but it impacted natural gas because natural gas is the swing producer. That's where they should just be able to flip the switch and turn on all the power that they could possibly need. It's a little more expensive. They don't like using it, but when they need to, they do. But that's an interesting one there, isn't it? 400% increase in natural gas prices. What is going on? Why would the price of natural gas go up by 400% just in the last few days? Well, we have concerns that we're going to have some freeze offs, and freeze offs are when you got your natural gas coming out of the ground and goes into a pipeline. The problem is the pipelines are not insulated oftentimes, and so as that natural gas comes out of the ground, it has water in it. That water has to be separated from it, but the water, when it hits that cold pipe, starts freezing on the inside of the pipe and starts building up an ice blockage, and it then constricts the flow, and ultimately it will actually stop the pipe up completely, and it will become one big ice block inside there, and no natural gas comes out anymore. So we have coolant lines that can freeze. We have natural gas that can freeze in. Notice here we're having a conversation here with the PJM interconnection, which is that the Pennsylvania, Ohio production area that produces a lot of power. And recently, a lot of that power has been natural gas because we have the shale formations and everything like that. We're producing a lot of natural gas. We don't have all the pipeline capacity to get it out of the area still. So they burn a lot of it right here. Now, they've been shutting down a lot of the coal fire power plants. But if Pennsylvania and West Virginia has a lot of the natural gas freeze off, that's going to cause a lot less power to be produced here in the state of Pennsylvania, which can't be exported to bail out New England. New England is a whole nother ball of wax. They refuse to build power plants up there. And so they're completely dependent upon Pennsylvania for power. It's really kind of a nightmare. Every time it gets cold up there, everyone switches on their furnaces. They start using natural gas, and the power plants aren't allowed to use the natural gas because that natural gas is prioritized to residential customers, and they only have so much supply. And if it gets cold and stays cold for a while in New England, their power plants run out of their reserves of natural gas. And basically they have to most of the year, they're basically pumping natural gas up there and building up their fuel reserves. And then in the wintertime, they draw down those fuel reserves pretty heavily. And they actually have to sometimes tank up off of ships coming up to dump natural gas in there because the pipelines, because they don't want to build pipelines. But I digress. We're not so concerned about New England right now, but we could be having that conversation in a couple weeks, possibly. We'll see how things go up there. But right now we're having the conversation about down south in Texas, as well as potentially in the Midwest states and potentially in the North Carolina areas as well. But right now it's mostly Texas and the Midwest. So we got temperatures plunging. It's supposed to be down for just a little bit. So they're anticipating, and all their projections are based on that temperatures come bouncing back fast. So by the 18th, they're expecting temperatures to be back up here, right? So if temperatures hit down here and then they kind of go more sideways, that's going to cause a really big problem, So that's what we're looking at. That's why Louisiana's gas prices are up 300%. And we're looking at much higher percentage in other markets there. So freeze offs. This is a tweet that went out by Celsius Energy. So they're expecting freeze offs will ramp up. Output will continue to fall on billion cubic feet of natural gas. And right now they're looking at the weather. And January 13th through 19th, basically 300 billion cubic feet drawdown on that's their projection right now on how much natural gas will lose. Now, they're projecting the third worst drawdown of natural gas on record. So we're going to be tapping our natural gas reserves and starting to drain the tanks, basically. So the question is how long do these freeze-offs, how bad are the freeze-offs, and how much will that reduce production of natural gas? And then secondly, how fast are we going to be drawing down our reserves, right? We have gas production already dropping in the Rockies. Rocky Mountains have already gotten their blast of cold. They already have the weather, the Arctic blast is there, and we're seeing the freeze-offs are happening already. Take a look at that. That's not my red line. That's their red line. So you're seeing the freeze-offs are definitely already impacting production. This is what it looked like last year during winter storm right before Christmas Eve. And that's when we had our issues with Duke Energy last year. And you look at winter 2021, we had a sharp drop off in late December. And in the Rocky Mountains, you didn't have much more freeze offs except one here in April. So this is already, if this continues down, we're going to be seeing a lot of Rocky Mountain drop off of production of gas. That's not super concerning, except for the fact that if it's happening in the Rockies, will it happen down in Texas? When we get down to the Texas natural gas production, that is a big deal, and it's a big deal of production too. So right now, this is the big graph that we're watching right now. ERCOT generation outages. This is the graph. As we have production outages, now that would be good. If we have a lot of production outages due to freezing coolant lines, and you can actually watch this in real time up on their website. ERCOT now displays this. So forced outages versus planned outages. So right now, most of the outages are not planned outages. That kind of just tells you that that they're running basically they have most of their power plants online right now because they're anticipating issues. That's why these are so close. More times the forced outages are lower and the total outages are higher, and because there's a bunch of planned outages. But really, we have very, very little planned outages right now. So are we going to see this line spike upwards? That will mean that some of our other graphs are going to start having an impact here, like this one. When we start seeing that supply start dropping, and it doesn't stay above the demand, that's when they're going to have to start getting creative, and they can knock a little bit of this demand off, right? They can knock a little bit of off. They can get some companies to shut down. They can get their municipal water supply systems to shut down. But there's only so much they can take off before they have to start switching off residential. Now, hopefully, they'll be able to start switching off residential in short increments. So knock everyone off for 30 minutes and start rotating that through. The problem was that they said that they were rotating outages last time in 2021, but they weren't. People were just out of power for a while, days, and some people just didn't get it back on. And of course, they had a lot of water issues that got into water lines that shorted out stuff. And so that was a problem too, because pipes bursting, all that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of interesting conjectures here. Right now, we do not have a crisis, but we could have a crisis relatively quickly if some things happen. We have all these outages of natural gas over here as the cold weather is plunging down towards Texas, as the cold weather is coming east. We're going to see more and more outages of natural gas production. Natural gas pipelines are going to freeze up, and potentially coolant lines of some power plants that are not insulated. That's what we're looking at here, folks. Just wanted to bring you up to date on everything that's going on, give you some ideas of what we're going to be watching. I'm going to be watching these things like a hawk for you guys. So hopefully we'll be able to give you a warning before things go sideways, but be prepared for your electricity to go out. Do you know how reliant your heat is on electricity? Even if you have natural gas heating, your power may mean that you lose heat, right? Do you have a backup to power your heater? If you have fans and stuff like that that are required for your heater, your central heating unit to work, that's going to cause problems. And do you have backup power, backup heating supplies, backup heater, propane or kerosene or diesel? And most important with all of that, most important of all that, please, please, please have your carbon monoxide detectors if you use any flame heat in your home, including candles. Candles or anything that is burning stuff, make sure you have your carbon monoxide detectors active and ready to go off. Make sure they have good batteries in them. Make sure that they are positioned where they need to be, where you can hear them and where they're going to detect any carbon monoxide. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up there. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.